For most of the world, the sudden outbreak of hostilities between India and Pakistan in May 2025 seemed like yet another flashpoint in a decades-old regional rivalry. But what just happened was not just another border skirmish. It was a historic milestone. For the first time, two nuclear-armed nations engaged in a large-scale drone and missile exchange, targeting civilian and military infrastructure deep inside each other's territory. And yet, this event is not merely a product of modern military technology or recent political provocations. It is the culmination of a 1,000-year story, one that blends religion, colonial trauma, water, empire, and the very idea of civilization itself. To truly understand why India and Pakistan are locked in what may be the most dangerous rivalry of the 21st century, we must go far beyond the headlines. We must return to the fall of empires, the scars of partition, and the spiritual stakes that make compromise almost impossible. And we must examine why this latest clash, known as Operation Sindoor and Operation Bunyan el-Marsis, marks a new era of warfare, with implications that reach as far as Washington, Beijing, and Riyadh. Unlike most modern borders, the line that divides India and Pakistan is not just geopolitical, it is spiritual. When the British Raj dissolved in 1947, it did not simply create two nations. It tore apart a civilizational ecosystem that had coexisted however uneasily for centuries. Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, and Buddhists had shared a common space, punctuated by violence but also deep cultural interdependence. The creation of Pakistan as a homeland for South Asia's Muslims was a radical experiment. Never before had an Islamic state been created on the basis of religion alone in the modern world, especially one that had to surgically remove itself from a shared motherland. This spiritual rupture was never healed. The partition of India left more than 1 million people dead and created the largest forced migration in human history. Cities like Lahore, Delhi, and Karachi became haunted by the memory of what they had lost. Families were divided, identities shattered, and trust permanently broken. Kashmir became the symbolic battleground for all this pain. A Muslim-majority region ruled by a Hindu king, it was caught in the middle during partition. And ever since, both India and Pakistan have claimed it as their own. But Kashmir is more than just territory. For Pakistan, it represents the unfinished business of partition, the Muslim land that rightfully belongs within its borders. For India, it represents secularism and sovereignty, proof that a multi-religious democracy can hold itself together. The latest war was sparked by a brutal terror attack in April 2025. Militants ambushed a convoy of Hindu pilgrims in Pahalgam, killing 26 civilians. India blamed Lashkar-e-Taiba, a Pakistan-based jihadist group with a long record of attacks in Kashmir and beyond. Pakistan denied involvement, as always, but India responded with unprecedented ferocity. On May 7th, India launched Operation Sindoor, a coordinated wave of strikes using drones, cruise missiles, and cyber attacks on Pakistani soil and military targets in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. This was not a symbolic retaliation. It was an open act of war. In response, Pakistan unveiled Operation Bunyan el-Marsus, a name borrowed from an ancient Arabic metaphor for a solid fortress. It fired ballistic missiles and loitering drones at Indian cities, including Delhi and military sites near Amritsar. For the first time in history, drones became the main instrument of conflict between two nuclear states. Cheap, fast, hard to detect, and capable of penetrating deep into enemy territory. The use of drones changed everything. Unlike fighter jets, drones don't require pilots. They can be launched in swarms. And most importantly, they blur the line between military and civilian targets. Oil depots, data centers, power grids, and even religious sites became potential targets. The psychological impact was enormous. Suddenly, no city was safe. Both India and Pakistan possess over 150 nuclear warheads each. Any full-scale war risks triggering a regional, or even global, catastrophe. So, why did they flirt with the edge? The answer lies in the doctrine of rational irrationality. Both countries use controlled escalation as a signaling tool. India wants to show that terrorism will not go unpunished. Pakistan wants to show it cannot be bullied, Each uses limited strikes to reinforce deterrence. But with drones, that balance becomes dangerously unstable. A single miscalculation, a drone misidentified as a nuclear delivery system, or a strike on a sensitive religious site, could trigger an irreversible chain reaction. It's a geopolitical version of chicken, with nuclear-tipped trucks. Hidden beneath the fire and smoke is another existential issue: water. The Indus Waters Treaty, signed in 1960, governs the flow of rivers from India into Pakistan. Over 80% of Pakistan's agriculture relies on water that originates in Indian-administered territory. When India suspended its cooperation with the treaty in early May, it was a quiet earthquake. Weaponizing water is a red line for Pakistan. It fears a future where India dams or diverts rivers, strangling its economy. This is not just paranoia. India has invested heavily in hydropower projects in Kashmir. While technically legal under the treaty, these dams give India leverage. And in a time of war, leverage is everything. This is not merely a border war. It is a conflict steeped in religious eschatology. For many in Pakistan's military intelligence elite, especially those influenced by Islamist ideologies, Kashmir is not just land. It is sacred end-time territory. Some even believe in a prophecy that a great Islamic army will rise from the east to liberate Muslim lands. Kashmir, for them, is part of that spiritual arc. On the Indian side, the rise of Hindutva, a Hindu nationalist ideology, has reframed Kashmir not just as a security issue, but as a religious mission. The removal of Article 370 in 2019, which gave Kashmir semi-autonomous status, was celebrated by Hindu nationalists as the final unification of India. For many, Kashmir is not just a region. It is a lost daughter being reclaimed from foreign invaders. When two nuclear powers believe they are enacting divine destiny, diplomacy becomes secondary, and danger becomes existential. This is not a bilateral conflict. It is a geopolitical magnet. China has deep ties with Pakistan, including the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which runs through contested territory. Beijing views Indian aggression as a threat to its regional interests, and may subtly arm or finance Pakistani responses. Saudi Arabia, long an ally of Pakistan, now has closer ties with India too. It is torn between religious loyalty and economic pragmatism. The United States, meanwhile, is caught in a triangle of contradictions. It sees India as a bulwark against China, a fellow democracy, and a key trade partner. But it also values stability in Pakistan, which has nuclear weapons and influence over Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. Washington wants peace, but has limited leverage when both sides are driven by emotion and history. The May 2025 war ended with a fragile ceasefire, brokered under American pressure and Gulf mediation. But make no mistake, this is not peace, it is intermission. As long as Kashmir remains unresolved, as long as water flows from India into Pakistan, as long as both countries use nationalism and religion to justify hardline policies, the conflict will return. But next time, it may not be drones. It may be cyber attacks on nuclear systems, or AI-guided missile swarms, or worse, a localized nuclear strike under the delusion that limited use is possible. The India-Pakistan conflict is not just a regional problem. It is the canary in the coal mine for a new kind of warfare, where religion, history, water, and drones converge in an unstable cocktail. This conflict is haunted by ghosts, by the Muslim soldiers of the Mughal Empire, by the Hindu kings who resisted them, by the British officials who drew careless borders, by the families torn apart in 1947, by the boys radicalized in madrasas, by the pilgrims who died on the highway to Pahalgam, by the commanders who play chess with missiles. To outsiders, it's a political dispute. To those who live it, it's history bleeding into the present, it's trauma weaponized, it's faith corrupted by fire. And unless the world takes it seriously, not just as a flare-up, but as a multi-layered fault line, we may all pay the price when the next drone crosses a line that no one can undo.